The American AI industry is pumping hundreds of billions of dollars into data centers in the hope of future profits. It's a massive gamble, massive bet, and they face two big problems in terms of whether or not it will pay off. So the first problem is the sheer amount of money they're pumping into AI infrastructure, which will need an enormous, sort of unprecedented amount of revenue to actually generate a return on investment. Now, according to Bessemer Venture Partners, by 2031, the big five firms investing in data centers, so they're known as the hyperscalers, will have spent a combined $8 trillion on AI infrastructure. Now, that figure is arrived at because from next year onwards, the hyperscalers, so this is sort of Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, they will spend over $1 trillion a year on data centers. $1 trillion a year on data centers. Now, for reference, the output of the entire UK economy per year is $3 trillion. So it's as if a third of all of the energy of British people was going into building data centers. Now, to cover those costs, including depreciation, so these data centers they do decline in value. They do, the chips become outdated. And Bessemer Partners say the big five firms, so as I say, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Oracle, will need to make $3 trillion a year in new AI-related revenue. So $3 trillion a year for this to pay off, for this not to be a loss-making investment. Now, $3 trillion a year is a full 10% of the United States annual GDP, also 7 times the current AI-related revenue of the hyperscalers. So that's a lot of growth. It will require the development of a lot more use cases for AI than it currently provides to get 10% of AI, of US GDP spent on essentially AI by consumers and businesses. Ominously, the report that I've been referencing here says, quote, "The main prize is the $40 trillion paid annually to knowledge workers globally." So that's what they're looking to displace all of the world's knowledge workers. So the $40 trillion, instead of going into workers' pay packets, can go straight to their company, right? The big gamble is how many jobs AI can replace. So already difficult to see how they make this money. And there is a further problem for the American firms. Now, that's because even if AI does end up serving lots of high-value uses and replacing lots of jobs, the hyperscalers need captive markets, right? They need companies and consumers who not only want to spend lots of money on AI, but they want to spend lots of money on AI with American firms. And that's where the threat from Chinese competition comes in. So a piece in The Economist this week lays out the problem for Meta, Google, et al., for all the big American tech firms. It's titled, "How China Gets Better Bang for Its Buck Than America in AI." This is what the article says. "How much money should companies lavish on artificial intelligence? American tech giants think the answer is a lot. Their capital spending on data centers may surpass $740 billion this year, according to Bloomberg Intelligence. Investors who used to agree are having second thoughts. When on July 26 it emerged that NVIDIA was in talks to underwrite $250 billion of a gargantuan $500 billion plus data center stuffed full of its chips and run by OpenAI, a leading model maker, its share price tumbled. Days earlier, investors blanched when Alphabet, Google's parent company, said it would boost its AI spending to $205 billion this year. AI stocks in Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan have plummeted too. The American AI splurge looks especially profligate compared with Chinese parsimony. In 2026, Chinese tech titans are forecast to invest less than a tenth as much in data centers as their American counterparts. Their models appear only fractionally less powerful owing to this frugality. K3, an advanced model launched last month by Moonshot AI, a Beijing-based startup, is 95% as clever on widely used benchmarks as Fable 5, a frontier model from Anthropic, another top American lab. It is also 70% cheaper to use. On August the 3rd, Alibaba, a Chinese tech giant, released a model which reportedly scored amongst the world's best by some measures. Now, to explain how the Chinese firms are able to get more bang for their buck, The Economist cited cheaper land, cheaper electricity, and cheaper labor. They also pointed to accusations that Chinese firms are training their models using outputs of expensive American ones. This is what's called distillation. You ask the American models loads and loads of questions, and by doing that, you build up your own model. They also say it's partly a result of China being banned from buying the most expensive and advanced chips from America or from Taiwan, namely the ones made by NVIDIA. And so that forces them to do more with less. Aaron, we haven't actually talked about sort of the tech bubble in a while. Last year, all the companies involved in AI just had a phenomenal year. Their stock prices just went up and up and up and up and up. This year, they've been flatlining, sometimes going down. And I think that is because investors are suddenly worrying, AI is real. AI is going to have uses. It's going to generate revenue in the future. But is it going to generate $1 trillion a year? And especially, is it going to generate $1 trillion a year for American companies if firms and consumers can get the same product for much cheaper from a Chinese company?
Yeah. So you said the chips are made by NVIDIA. The chips aren't made by NVIDIA. They're designed by NVIDIA. They're made by TSMC and Samsung. However, NVIDIA is, at certain points, the world's most valuable company. It's been estimated at between $4.5 and $5 trillion this year. It's between them and Apple, right? Apple bumped up its products a little bit, and people kept on buying them. And actually, shareholders say, you know what, Apple's golden, it's good. But NVIDIA, this company started by Jensen Huang, is at the forefront of this revolution because they are the market leaders in building the chips that are needed, or designing the chips that are needed to basically lead with this technology. Right. We understand all of that. Why is NVIDIA worth $5 trillion? Why is this company that nobody had heard of 10 years ago that was making GPUs for gaming consoles, why is that worth $5 trillion? It's a bet. What's the bet? It's a bet that this technology will create enough value or capture enough value, better put, that there'll be a decent return on investment. But of course, like you say, if people are sinking trillions of dollars into an industry a year, what's the return got to look like? And what's the basis of thinking that there would be a viable return? Well, the basis is that the value capture will be extraordinary. Mm-hmm. It means laying off hundreds of thousands, millions of people from pretty much every single white-collar job. And the business model that people have in mind here, of course, is the monopoly capitalism that you see with big tech after 2000, 2005. New industry, the Peter Thiel model, right? New industry, create a moat. You can't have competitors, scale quickly, capture as much value as possible, have a monopoly. That's he's always...
This is how Meta and Google became the most profitable companies of all time.
Exactly. And Peter Thiel has explicitly said, he wrote a book about it, 0 to 1. If a business doesn't have this model or doesn't have this possibility, like Uber, right? I'm not interested. I'm literally not interested in that business. Now, some people have said, I think quite rightly, in the last 10 years, this is not really a free market model because free market capitalism at least claims to believe in competition. It's meant to be anti-monopolistic. Okay. So that's the bet. All the monopoly capital that we've seen over the last 25 years, all the value capture, all the disruption into the labor market, etc., 10x that. And that's going to mean lots of people who are laid off, unemployed, underemployed, made precarious. Whether or not that happens is a separate matter. But you should take it seriously because the people investing in NVIDIA or the people who are buying stock in Meta, at least until recently, believe that was the case. So these companies, you might think, well, they're worth trillions of dollars, Meta, Alphabet, etc. Some of the people within those companies think, we're just getting started, okay? We're just getting started. We want to take out the banks. We want to take out financial services beyond the banks. We want to take out pharmaceutical companies. We want to take out legal services. We want to take out accounting. There's a lot of value we can capture. Amazon doesn't want to just take out WH Smith, Waterstones, Borders on the high street. It wants the whole bakery, metaphorically speaking.
And the other issue here, which was in the Economist article, and that quote I brought up, the other reason people are saying this might be a big bubble is because Alphabet and OpenAI and all these companies, they're not making a profit at the moment, right? Their costs are much higher than their revenue. So they're all saying we're going to make a big profit in the future. NVIDIA are making a profit at the moment
Yeah.
because they're selling all of these chips to the hyperscalers, right? So they are the one company that's currently got enormous revenue. But what's getting everyone a bit nervous is the fact that actually a lot of their product, they are underwriting themselves. So NVIDIA are supporting OpenAI to buy NVIDIA chips. So even the NVIDIA revenue, which is the one thing people had confidence in, people are now saying, well, are NVIDIA essentially buying their own chips? And is that inflating their revenue? So even NVIDIA, which looked like the safe bet, is not necessarily as safe. It's still the first or second most valuable company in the world, depending on where Apple and NVIDIA are on any given day.
But you know what? There's a second point here. So we're saying that there could be Chinese competitors to all these companies that are using the NVIDIA technology. So Meta, Alphabet, Amazon, etc. But equally, NVIDIA, it's not Saudi Arabia with oil. They don't have some natural resource that other people can't get at. Ultimately, they design chips, right? And it's perfectly plausible that another company comes along and does a better job. I mean, that's the story of capitalism over the last 150 years. And it may well be that the company that does that isn't even based in the United States. I find it really interesting, Michael, that TSMC, the company in Taiwan that makes about 90% of the most cutting-edge chips, this ultra-thin, lithographic printing that they use. Samsung do some as well, but it's almost all TSMC. TSMC, last time I checked, it's probably more now, is valued at something like $1 trillion. Like, it literally makes all of this stuff. Every single machine in the world that is using cutting-edge chips relies on TSMC. And this company which is designing chips for Google Gemini or ChatGPT is worth $5 trillion. I mean, that instinctively to me, again, I imagine I'm speaking to my Iranian great-grandfather, semi-literate farmer. He would say, well, hold on, common sense says that would seem a bit of an imbalance in terms of the market valuations, right?
Yeah, it does seem like NVIDIA have less of a moat than TSMC, but it's an interesting point. But they must think that the upside for NVIDIA is higher. But I mean, they love intellectual property, don't they? I don't know. We're going to go on to a different aspect of this story, though, because sort of aside from the economics, although it is related, when OpenAI and Anthropic both came out last month to say their AI agents had gone rogue, there was a lot of suspicion that these were simply PR stunts. Both companies, of course, want to put forward an image of their products as mysterious and powerful, to justify, basically, the amount of money people are investing in them. And what better way to make that argument than with a horror story about their models gaining a life of their own and hacking other firms, right? You might not see how we're going to make back all of this investment in the future, but I mean, we've got a product which is like no other product ever in history, right? That's the argument they're putting forward. And I think the idea that there was a lot of PR to this, I think there's a lot of truth to that. However, today, a more neutral organisation has also come forward to say these dangerous behaviours are quite real. So the AI Security Institute is a UK government organisation, so it's not profiting from AI, who this week released a report about unsanctioned agent behaviour during their own testing of Anthropic and OpenAI models. To find out more, I spoke to senior researcher in machine learning at the University of Oxford, Dr. Adel Bibi.
The AI Security Institute does so many things, and a primary focus among the things they do is to do evaluation. So to understand, as models get released to the public, what are the type of things they can and cannot do, and whether they are safe for the public to use. Now, it's very important caveat that we have to highlight is that the UK AI Safety Institute does have access to pre-released models. So even before these models gets presented to the public, they can do internal evaluations on it just to see what are the type of risks that will arise as part of that. Now, going to the reports, as part of the capabilities that UK EC actually evaluates, they evaluate from biochem and other stuff, but one aspect they do evaluate is the model's ability to commit cybercrime in all different variants, hacking or hijacking into systems and other stuff. So what they had access to is they had access to frontier models, but with reduced guardrails. So not exactly the stuff we have access to in the public, stuff with no classifiers that checks if the model is doing something harmful. Just like when you go on ChatGPT and says no to your potentially harmful, funny questions. And then they put them under a test. They ask these agents or these models to do something that is totally benign and safe. Like something like, fix this code for me into this GitHub repo, something generally benign. However, they ask the agents to be a little bit more creative, right? It's like almost like telling it, this is very important that you solve this problem, and you can explore a little bit what you want to do, right? And the guardrails were slightly reduced, so there might not have been, explicit requests not to hijack or attack other people or attack other systems, just to see where, their curiosity would lead them to. And surprise, surprise, these agents have high enough capability to explore various routes. One of these routes involve social engineering, dropping emails to other people to try to exfiltrate some information in the attempt to solving the original task that was actually benign. So this is, I think, another indication to an unprecedented improvement in capabilities.
And so this is similar, as far as I understand it, to sort of the OpenAI Hugging Face incident, isn't it? Where the AI model is given a benign task, instead of doing the task sort of honestly, if you imagine a person taking a test, it hacks into a database to try and find the answer, to try and find the answer to the problem which it has been given. And I suppose what stuck out to me in the write-up of this is, as you say, the social engineering, which it created so it puts some malicious code onto GitHub. So GitHub is a place where sort of coders store code. Obviously, this is not my industry, so you can correct me if I'm saying something completely wrong. But then to try and get it approved, what the AI agent was doing, it actually went and emailed a real human and pretended to be a real human and sort of, I think, spoke in Danish or Norwegian, and then also pretended to be other users giving their comments likes. So yeah, can you talk about it from that perspective?
So from this perspective, actually, I think this is one of the earliest works that we have seen. We haven't seen this before. So this is sort of a novelty towards what we know about the OpenAI incident and the later Anthropic incident, their ability to do social engineering towards getting some access to more information. So with that regard, actually, it seems that these agents detected some patterns. So as part of their quest to solving that task, they came across a username or an account of someone. And then while they're sort of solving it and searching the internet, they saw an account that was somewhat similar to what they have seen before. So they built up these correlations. And they thought, well, one way to solve the problem is to communicate with this person and get some information out of it. Now, it is very important to highlight that also the agents, while doing that, part of the social engineering stuff they were doing, is that they were reasoning, am I in simulation? Am I being tested? Is this all safe? Am I in trusted environment? And looking at the chain of thoughts that was generated of the model, it seems that they did conclude that this might not be a simulation. And yet they actually went on with the process. But I think this is one of the very few examples that we have seen recently, maybe the first one to my knowledge, that the models did actually directly contact people as part of social engineering track towards solving that.
And was it successful? Was the human convinced?
None of the malicious attempts were successful in any way or form. Some of those, even one of the attempts that the agents tried to do is to create fake accounts impersonating potentially some people. These were also blocked down by GitHub after a while. But none of these harmful attempts actually were ever successful. And they actually, one of the things they tried to do is to do an update to some code, and they requested approval to someone else's code, but that person realized there is malware in this request, and they turned it down. So none of these attempts were actually successful.
And I suppose a question people have had when it came to OpenAI, also Anthropic, sort of their release saying, oh, actually our AI went rogue as well, and then this one, is, I suppose, the extent to which they actually have gone rogue. Because, I mean, by your description, it sounds a bit like the AI Security Institute said, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. If you want to try and hack this information, feel free. And the agent has basically done what was asked of it, which doesn't sound like going rogue, right? Going rogue would normally be it's sort of explicitly not followed its instructions, whereas here it sounds like the AI Security Institute said, can you answer this question by any means necessary? And that's exactly what the agent did.
That's precisely it. So I personally wouldn't consider this as AI going rogue. We tend to observe that these models are laser focused to solving problems. if you tell them solve this and you give them enough time and computation, they will keep trying harder and harder to solve it. Now, if you didn't specify the type of things they shouldn't be doing, you sort of allow them sort of to do it in the hopes that, you're hoping that they will self-reflect and realize this is potentially not something my human operator would like, so therefore I wouldn't be doing it. So it's not wrong in that regard, because its objective is to solve the human's intents, the objective, the task, but the task was purposely, for the testing purposes, slightly made vaguer, more vague in terms of what can and cannot be done.
So what's the implications of that? If an AI agent has done what it was asked, should anyone be particularly worried, or should we just give it more benign sort of tasks?
Yeah, so I think, yes, you should worry about that, specifically because we're moving towards AI automation, meaning that people will rely on AI more often now and sort of will, pre-approve many of the requests that the AI says, I'm going to do this to solve your problem, I'm going to do that to solve your problem. And if we don't have proper monitors on problems that are not well specified, problems will happen. And this problem exists for a long, long time. This used to be called also reward hacking, in which I specify the ultimate goal, but I don't specify the routes towards achieving that goal or the forbidden routes towards achieving it. And people oftentimes, when they use AI, they might end up misspecifying the objective or the task. And that's part of the human error. And therefore, some of these problems may arise, specifically if the AI is not regulated or governed.